Beyond autopilot, the revolution of intentional living. Have you ever caught yourself going through the motions? Wake up, scroll, work, eat, sleep, repeat. Days blur into weeks, weeks into months, and suddenly you're wondering where the time went. And more importantly, where you went. I recently had the extraordinary opportunity to interview Marie Hester, a visionary whose work in intentional living has transformed countless lives across continents. Marie isn't just another self help guru, she's a revolutionary disguised as a gentle guide, someone who has helped thousands reclaim their lives from the tyranny of autopilot. What struck me most about our conversation wasn't just her wisdom, but how she embodies the very revolution she speaks about, a revolution that begins not in the streets, but in our minds. The first change, as Marie reminded me with that knowing smile that somehow makes you feel both seen and challenged, takes place within. We live in a world that rewards busyness, that glorifies the grind, that measures worth by productivity. We've become so accustomed to running on autopilot that we've forgotten what it means to truly steer our own lives. Our phones ping, we respond. Our calendars fill, we comply. Our social media feeds dictate our desires, and we don't even notice the subtle hijacking of our attention. But what if there's another way? What if, and I know this sounds almost ridiculously simple, the most radical act isn't doing more, but choosing with intention? I want to share three profound insights from my conversation with Marie that might just change how you navigate your life starting today. And fair warning, they might make you a bit uncomfortable. Growth usually does. First, life requires intention, not just existence. There's a vast difference between living and merely existing. Existing happens by default. Living, truly living, demands something more from us. It asks us to be present, to make conscious choices, to participate actively in our own stories. It's the difference between being a passenger in your life versus actually driving the car. Marie shared a story about Nico Marie, a Black yogi and entrepreneur who documents her journey toward holistic health on social media. Nico faced that pivotal moment many of us recognize, standing at the crossroads between what was comfortable and what was calling her. Career uncertainty loomed like a storm cloud. Personal transformation beckoned like a lighthouse. The delicate balance between spiritual growth and business ambitions seemed as impossible to maintain as trying to stand on one foot while juggling flaming torches. But instead of drifting with the current, which, let's be honest, is what most of us do when faced with uncertainty, Nico made a radical choice, intention over inertia. With guidance from her mentor Beverly at Ray Management Group, she began approaching both her business and personal life with deliberate purpose. She committed to daily practices that anchored her intentions, not as luxury add ons to her busy schedule, but as the very foundation of her success. The revolution will not be televised, Nico often reminds her followers. The first change that takes place is within your mind. This isn't abstract philosophy. This isn't woo woo nonsense. This is practical revolution. By combining spirituality with practical action, Nico grew her business while simultaneously deepening her sense of purpose. Today, she leads by example, showing other entrepreneurs, particularly Black women, that mental health rituals like yoga and meditation aren't optional extras. They're essential practices for sustainable success. The second insight that Marie Hester illuminated in our conversation is perhaps even more powerful. Your power lies in choice, especially when it feels like there are none. We've all been there. Circumstances closing in like walls in a bad horror movie. options narrowing to a pinpoint, the weight of expectation from family, community, society pressing down until it feels like there's only one path forward. But what if that's precisely when our power is at its greatest? Marie Forleo's journey exemplifies this truth. And as an internationally recognized entrepreneur, now known for helping people design lives they love, Marie once struggled intensely with clarity around what she truly wanted versus what was expected of her. The pressure to follow conventional paths was immense. The fear of disappointing others, paralyzing. The doubt in her own instincts, nearly overwhelming. Yet Marie discovers something transformative. Even when external options seem limited, internal choice remains infinite. She began adopting an approach centered on mindful decision making, even when those choices felt risky or unconventional. This eventually led to founding multiple successful ventures, including her renowned B School program. Her philosophy, everything is figure outable, isn't about toxic positivity or denying real obstacles. It's about reclaiming agency through conscious choice, no matter how small that choice might seem in the moment. After years spent going with the flow, Marie's awakening came from realizing she could steer even against strong currents if she moved intentionally each day. The act of deciding, however small, can shift the entire course of your journey. This brings me to the third insight from my conversation with Marie Hester. Growth is a continuous practice, not a destination. We've been sold this myth that transformation happens in dramatic, Instagram worthy moments, that one day we'll arrive at this magical place called healed or successful or complete. But that's not how human development works. That's not how life works. And frankly, it's not even how nature works. Trees don't suddenly decide they're done growing. Living intentionally isn't about perfection, it's about embracing the ongoing process of self discovery and healing. Holistic well being requires consistent rituals. Mindfulness, self love, sexual freedom, and nurturing relationships are all part of this evolving practice. I was particularly moved by a story Marie shared about creating inclusive spaces through storytelling. This example highlighted how sharing authentic stories can foster community healing among Black professionals facing similar struggles between faith, fear, family responsibilities, and their own desires for more abundant living. Many individuals wrestle silently under cultural expectations or spiritual beliefs that discourage active engagement in shaping one's destiny, instead, encouraging passivity or sacrifice at the expense of personal fulfillment. But through open dialogue about sexuality, mindfulness practices such as deep breathing rituals, this is therapy, this is love, plus honest conversations about love and abundance, these communities are breaking taboos while modeling holistic wholeness beyond surface success. The outcome? Communities become more resilient when vulnerability meets collective wisdom. Listeners report feeling seen and emboldened to make braver choices toward joy filled lives. After raising 5 children alone amid apprehension, yet longing for freedom, voices like these show others it's possible and necessary to recalibrate priorities midlife without shame or apology. This ripple effect transforms not only individual trajectories, but also shifts norms across families and industries toward greater authenticity. What's particularly powerful about Marie Hester's approach is how she frames intentional living not as another burden to bear, but as a pathway to liberation. For high achieving individuals, especially Black women who've often carried the weight of multiple responsibilities. The invitation to live with intention can initially sound like one more thing to excel at, one more standard to meet. But that's a fundamental misunderstanding. Intentional living isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's not about controlling outcomes, it's about owning choices. It's not about adding to your to do list, it's about aligning your actions with your deepest values. I'm reminded of Marie Forleo's journey again. As a one New York Times best-selling author and founder of platforms designed for purposeful living, she could easily present herself as someone who has it all figured out. Instead, she continuously emphasized that intentional living is a practice, sometimes messy, always evolving. Her work has inspired countless professionals to build businesses aligned fully with their values rather than societal pressures alone. Not because they've achieved some pinnacle of enlightenment, but because they're committed to the ongoing practice of choosing consciously. This is where the true revolution lies, not in grand gestures or dramatic life overhauls, but in the quiet, consistent choice to live awake, to move with purpose, to choose with awareness, even when those choices are difficult, even when the path isn't clear. So, where do we go from here? How do we begin this revolution in our own lives? I challenge you today, not tomorrow, not someday, but in this moment, to break the spell of autopilot. Identify one area where you've been drifting instead of steering. Make a single conscious choice, even if small, that affirms your power over circumstance rather than letting circumstances dictate you. Document how it feels before versus after taking that step toward intention. Notice the shift, however subtle, in your relationship with your own life. The world wants you distracted. Society benefits when you're too busy, too tired, too overwhelmed to choose consciously. Systems of power thrive when we forget our own agency. But your life, your one precious, unrepeatable life, deserves more than unconscious existence. It deserves your full intentional participation. As Marie Hester taught me, and as Nico Marie and Marie Forleo demonstrate through their work, the revolution of intentional living isn't just about personal fulfillment. It's about reclaiming our collective humanity in a world designed to disconnect us from ourselves and each other. This revolution begins with the choice, your choice. Today, will you continue on autopilot or will you take the wheel? Will you drift with the current or will you steer your course? Will you merely exist or will you truly live? The revolution will not be televised. The revolution begins within your mind, and it starts with a single intentional choice.